Good morning and welcome to Lattes and Leaders with Dr. Brad Johnson, best-selling author and accomplished public speaker specializing in education and educational leadership. I am your co-host, Jeremy Johnson, organizational psychology consultant specializing in career coaching, training, and development. Meet us here each week to discuss topics in education and leadership and meet with some of the top education talent and thought partners from across the globe. So grab your latte, sit back, and enjoy a relaxed conversation that will leave you informed and encouraged. This morning we have a very special guest with us. We have Dr. Paul Walton. How are you doing today?
I'm very good. It's great to join the call, and thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here today. We really look forward to it. One of my goals was to get educational leaders from all around the world to share their experiences and things like that. So we are really excited to have you with us today. So thank you.
Thank you.
So let's get started this morning. Can you share a little bit about your journey so far?
Yeah, sure. So I started teaching in the UK. I trained originally as a computer science teacher, and then after a short while, got into leadership. I worked in two schools in England, and then after that, I decided to follow the kind of footsteps of many teachers and work overseas. Then worked for a company called Nord Anglia, the British International School of Budapest. So that was exciting in Hungary to start those first steps. And then after that, it was wonderful to get different opportunities in different countries, to work in Malaysia, to work in Slovenia, to work in Texas in the US, and also to work here in Bahrain as well. So it's been a wonderful journey. I've kept in contact with a lot of people who helped me at the start of the journey, and yeah, it's been wonderful to take on new challenges, meet lots of wonderful educators, and most of all, see students thriving and enjoying some wonderful experiences at school as well. So it's been quite a ride so far.
Oh wow, yeah, I didn't realize you had traveled so much. So that is awesome. So yeah, we definitely look forward to you sharing some of that in a minute. Malaysia is one place I've actually been fortunate to go, and I really had a good time there. I don't know what part you were in. I got to travel outside the city. I always tell people when they travel abroad, don't just go to the large cities. They're kind of the same all over, but actually, take time and go out into the country of where you're going, and you'll really experience their culture. So yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. What an amazing journey you've had so far. So I'm sure you have so many stories with different cultures and experiences. So thank you.
So I have a background in organizational psychology, so I'm always interested to hear when people have a varied background. So can you tell us a little bit about? You said you started off in technology education. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've used technology in your leadership roles?
Absolutely. That's a great question because I often refer to this quite a lot. But one of the things that I think has really helped, certainly from a computer science background, and I'm sure educators from whatever field they started in will always bring, a kind of different perspective and some kind of greater knowledge. But from my point of view, from computer science, it was a problem solving aspect. When I was training at university, I used to love, those different approaches and procedures to kind of look at problems. And a lot of that links directly into education. So I used to kind of share that with students. I've shared that with some teachers as well. And some of the kind of the theory behind it. For example, I refer to a famous Hungarian mathematician, computer science called George Pulya, who wrote a book called How to Solve It. And he talks about different ways to solve a problem. Do you understand the problem? Have you got all the different parts of the problem? Is it a familiar problem you've faced before? Who else could you ask to help solve the problem? And breaking it down to smaller chunks. So I think that from my perspective, the computer science part has certainly helped with the problem solving. But that's the wonderful thing about education. I think that from whatever background you come from, you bring, a certain set of skills.
Yeah, I think
Right.
you're right on with that because typically the background we come from is more than likely some areas of our strengths. So when we bring those to that role, we're bringing our best regardless of what that background is, and I really do think that ultimately helps us be more successful. So that's a really good point you made. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So that really is interesting. I recently started a book called Algorithms to Live By that, explores the integration of, computer science and algorithm and math, algorithms to daily life. And it's really interesting. It really makes you look at problems more objectively, I think, and informs to make better solutions. So that's really awesome.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us a little bit about some of the qualities that you think have led to your success in education leadership?
I think there's many qualities that we try and build and rely on, but the three or four that I would kind of look at would be, I think, trust. Building trust, I think, is a very good quality
Hmm.
to stand by. I think emotional intelligence becomes it's even more kind of trendy and kind of talked about now than ever before, because
Hmm.
it's really is key in the world that we live in right now. I also think that I mention this all the time, with colleagues, but just work ethic. I think it's overlooked
Hmm.
a lot, and I think that there's a famous video from Barack Obama where he said, "Just get things done," and it's a very short video. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube, and it's really important to keep demonstrating that work ethic. And I think the final thing would just be
Hmm.
a lifelong learner, and I think we ask the students, to learn, to read, to explore, to be curious. And I think we have to do the same. So I think that those four qualities, I think that, the building trust, emotional intelligence, making sure that, we have a good, strong work ethic, and also a lifelong learner. I think those four are four qualities that I've really tried to work hard on.
So yeah, that those four is a really good recipe for success, I think, because you have to have that trust first, like you said, and part of that is learning how to relate to them. And sometimes I think that's hard for some leaders, to have that emotional type, the empathy and things like that to build. But then, like you said, you're setting the example too with your work ethic. So that really is kind of a, a really good recipe for success, I think. Yeah.
So, can you tell us about a few of the challenges that you faced throughout your leadership career?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges is that I've been fortunate to go to schools that need, either a turnaround or have a kind of urgent project that is needing to kind of be looked at. And I think that the biggest challenge is culture. And I think it's creating a positive culture across the community with the staff. And I think that when you work in a school that has a positive, caring, friendly, collaborative culture, I think it's a wonderful thing. I think it's an absolute wonderful thing. And I often see a lot of teachers, post on social media about being unhappy in school and different things. If they could just experience the schools that have that positive culture, I think that they would sign up for the next 20, 30 years, to be a teacher. It really is
Oh yeah.
a wonderful thing. So I think that one of the challenges would be that I faced, the hardest one would be building a culture and turning that culture around. And I think that we've all been in that situation where you go into a school and people kind of they lack that, maybe that belief. They need that energy. They need that trust. They need that sense of belonging. They need to feel like somebody cares, and that somebody supports them, and there's a purpose behind doing things. And I think that that's probably been one of the biggest challenges, is to go into a school and really build a positive culture. And I've been fortunate to work with teams where we've been able to do that. We've been able to do that, and it requires a lot of hard work, a lot of kind of planning, a lot of theory side, but also the day to day, just being authentic and genuine. And this is something that I've talked about a lot with colleagues about how to build culture. And I think it's so important. And we could probably talk about culture, for an hour on its own. But I think one of the biggest challenges is to change that community culture, especially with staff, because the output from it, the outcome from it is just wonderful. It's the reason why we're in education for.
I would like to kind of add a little bit to that and ask you, because everybody always talks about diversity and experience it, and how we work with different cultures, but you've actually been in different cultures all around the world. So was there any challenges or anything different or harder about building the culture in the school when you were in immersed in very different cultures around the world?
Yeah, it's a really good point, and I think that it's a balance between two parts. One, you have your kind of proven change management, proven educational studies, science of learning studies on one side, which when you look at a culture, a community, you can kind of quickly think, okay, this is the way forward. But on the other side is the human side. It's the day to day, it's the reacting, and it's the understanding people. And that is very different because in some schools, you might be doing the right thing. You might think, okay, we want to start with this approach, but it just might be, too much for that particular community, or it might be communicated in a way where it's not offensive, but it isn't really kind of with the same positive kind of approach that you wanted. I normally, to address that, I normally use a model called start, stop, continue, which is when I look at the community and think you don't want to start too much because too much change makes people feel unsettled. And to work with the culture, what can you continue that aligns with where you want to go, but also makes them believe and makes them feel like you really have listened and that you're working on their strengths. And then obviously the stop area is anything that you believe that just needs to stop because it's too much work for the teachers without an impact on students, or it's just the wrong pedagogical kind of approach. So that start stop continue is a really good model, and I think that where leaders can get it wrong is they try and start too much and change too much without getting that sense of in this culture there's only a certain amount you can kind of bring in at one time and how you communicate it. So it's a balance between a kind of start stop approach and communicating kind of respectfully what you want to change step by step. And it's about understanding people.
Yeah, that takes wisdom too, I would imagine, because,
Yeah.
as a leader, you probably have all these ideas and things that you want to do. But like you said, you have to take a step back and say, okay, what is acceptable here? How do I work with, whatever culture? Because like I said, there's probably been big differences from one country to the other, I would imagine, in
Yeah.
some areas. And so, yeah, that just it shows a lot of wisdom to do that. Like you said, to try and do things, but not do too much, and stop if you need to have that wisdom to do that. So, yeah, that's a great perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I think that also there are many parts of that. Just it isn't just learning. It's the areas of things like sport in some schools where weekend sport, Saturday sport could be a huge part of one community, but there might be limitations on who can take part in sport. For how long, what age groups, what is culturally kind of accepted. So it really does kind of require a little bit of adjustment, and it's just about like I said, listening, being flexible, and just taking your time to really kind of understand that kind of starting point with start, stop, and continue.
Can you tell us about a teacher or two from your past or maybe present that have had the greatest impact on your personal development?
Yeah, of course. I think that I've always been interested in reading. I've always kind of read a lot, and I think that one of the most kind of influential people that I've worked with was the first international principal I met, Andrew Derry, who he was a guy who he's a guy who you basically speak to, and he he, he encourages you and excites you, inspires you to read, and he's one of these people that after either knowing him for a year or so, he's read this article or this person is a great person to follow, and having that kind of that breadth of kind of knowledge across different areas of learning and leadership has really helped. And he inspired me. Hey, go and read about Simon Sinek. Go and read about Dan Pink. Go and read about this person, that person. And it's great to know somebody like that who can really excite you to then say, hey, go and read about Jim Collins. From good to great and different. And it's fantastic to start getting that bug of kind of reading, and it kind of has a snowball impact because then you suddenly start taking snippets into your practice, and full-time education's busy enough, but there's always time to grab a book, to sit down, and the kind of your own professional development I think is really important. So yeah, the first principal I met overseas, Andrew Derry, I think would certainly be probably the most influential person that I met when I moved overseas.
Yeah, it's awesome that you had that relationship. I was reading a study recently that talks about how more and more people are going online to public figures, and following them, and it develops somewhat of the mentoring relationship, but it's not as effective as having that actual person in your life. So it's really important, and I think that we need to keep that in the front of our minds. If you had to give a nugget of wisdom to an up and coming leader, what would you say?
I think that there's so many different bits of advice that you'd like to share, but I think probably one of the is a leader. Now, I think that one of the best pieces of advice that has stuck with me is for especially for a leader, because the leaders should always take the responsibility. And I you hear so many quotes, but I think the best one that always kind of comes to me is to never ask anybody to do anything that you wouldn't do yourself. And I think that if you can live by that, then I think that encapsulates that service approach. It also brings apart that being a kind of humble kind of person. And I think that if you can demonstrate to your team or with your team that you serve that you'd never, kind of ask them to do something that you wouldn't do yourself, then that can really build trust and bring that belief along. So I think that one piece of wisdom can be kind of applied across many areas of leadership.
I was going to say there's probably not much that builds trust quicker than them seeing that in you,
Yeah.
almost that servant mentality that you're never going to ask them to do something that you wouldn't do. I do, and this is a little bit off of what you were saying earlier. How did you find it? Because you're at international schools everywhere you
Mhm.
go, but you are still immersed in very different cultures. Was that something to adjust? Were Did you pick up languages, because you're immersed in those cultures? Just tell us just a little bit about that, because I find that so interesting, and to see like how you actually navigate that, because that's, it's not just the work day, but your whole life is impacted by that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it, if you approach international teaching with the outlook that you are moving to a country, but to get the best out of that experience, as you mentioned before, to travel around the country, but also to kind of experience, the language, the culture, visiting all those places, then it's um, it's the most wonderful thing in the world, and you do kind of leave with language. And I do believe that. I believe that if you go somewhere, for example, I was in Hungary for 2 years, very difficult language, a beautiful place to live, but when you kind of, I remember being in a school in Texas, in Katy, Texas, and we had some families turn up, and I think one said something in Hungarian. Another one was a family that moved from Malaysia. So a colleague kind of nudged me and said, "How do you say good morning in Malaysia?" As we kind of greeted the parents and the students at the start of the day. And little things like that go a long, long way. So, when you can say hello, good morning, please, and thank you in different languages, I think that really shows kind of a little bit of buy-in. So, yeah, it's wonderful. And you haven't got to get it completely right. I think they just really appreciate the fact that you've taken, something with respect from their country. So
Mhm.
it's also remarkable when you go to different schools how often you will bump into the same nationalities again. So I try and remember those keywords, and yeah, I seem to kind of bump in families from Hungary or Malaysia in different places. So key vocabulary, I think is very good.
Oh, I love that. And like you said, I mean, what a way to show them like respect for their culture immediately and build that connection too, which, is obviously what we're after. So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
I know that you have a lot going on. I'm sure you're a busy guy. How do you unwind and decompress and do some of that self-care we talk about so much?
Uh, I I think I'm similar to a lot of people where I try and go to the gym, but the gym
Mhm.
sometimes doesn't work out because you get in late or you eat too early or you do different things. And I like a lot of people, I need to work harder to go there. But one of the things I've really benefited from recently is very simple, just going out for a walk in the evening, 30, 40 minutes, normally without headphones. So it's a lot easier to go out without listening to music and just to kind of go 30, 40 minutes. And it's a really good time, to get away from the emails, to get away from, kind of the thinking or in front of your screen and the feeling of school and the feeling of different things. It's good to go out because that time's valuable, not just to kind of reflect upon the school day and to kind of and to kind of wrap that up and kind of draw a line under that in your head, but also just to kind of to switch off a little bit and to to walk around and look at other things and just get distracted. And 30, 40 minutes for me, I think is great because when you come back, even though you didn't feel like going out for the walk, when you come back, it really it makes you feel good. So I think it's more of a probably a mental thing than a physical thing because it just helps me unwind. So I've been out walking 2 3 times a week and trying to go to the gym as well. But I've enjoyed the walking more than the gym.
Yeah, I love that, and I always share with people, like don't miss an opportunity to see a sunset or to see a sunrise. We get so distracted, like you said, with our screens, with our phones, with everything, and sometimes, it just feels so good and like replenishes us just to take a break from that, just the walk and just be distracted by the beauty around you. Is just a great way to do that. All right, so we have just one more tough question for you,
Okay.
because
Go ahead.
because this is called Lattes and Leaders. So, what is your hot beverage of choice? Is it coffee, latte, cappuccino, tea, or something else, or nothing?
I think it's a really good one to answer because I would normally get a cappuccino, but on a school day, when I drive in, I go to Starbucks every day on the way in, and it's normally a double shot, double shot hot coffee just to kickstart the day. So cappuccino normally, but a double shot hot coffee to start the day. So they're my only two coffees. I wish I could be more extravagant, but yeah, I think that starts me off with a bit of energy.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, we people joke and you see things on the internet all the time that, especially teachers, they run on coffee. So I definitely understand that in the double shot for sure. Some days that, yeah, helps get us going. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you so much. I wish that I'd known. I didn't realize you had traveled so much because I just think that's so interesting. I love to hear those experiences and stuff. So maybe if you don't mind, we can have you on in a few months down the road if you want to come back on and share a little bit more with that. Because
Absolutely.
one of the reasons one of the reasons I wanted people from all around the world, because I think it's so interesting. I know that most people generally don't get to travel a lot, so it's so interesting to hear of experiences, from different places, different cultures, and I think hopefully it makes the world a little bit smaller. And then, like you said, you never know. Being in the middle of Texas, you meet someone from Malaysia or from Hungary, and that's just it helps you understand and be able to connect with them a little better too, no matter where you are. So I love that. And so, yeah, definitely hope to have you back on so you can share more of that as well.
Yeah, I'd love to be back on. And as you mentioned, it feels like a small world sometimes. So I think that it's even more important that when you do visit these communities and you do work with cultures, that it's also worth bearing in mind that you might meet people again, and people might recognize you, or you know someone. The degrees of separation are getting kind of smaller, and I think it's great to internationally visit all these places and pick up as much as you possibly can. But yeah, I'd love to come on again, and thanks very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much.
This has been Lattes and Leaders with Dr. Brad Johnson. We hope that you leave today feeling informed and inspired. For more educational content, be sure to add this podcast to your list and follow Dr. Johnson on any and all social media platforms. For more information on Dr. Johnson, Jeremy Johnson, and special guest, check out drbradjohnson.com. That is DOCTOR, bradjohnson.com. Hope to have you back soon.